Morning, everyone. There has been so much news lately. It is hard to keep up, particularly with just doing one video a day. I'm on a little vacation, so I'm committed to one a day. But my goodness, there's so much going on, and not nearly enough time for me to put it all together for you. So I apologize, but I'm doing my best. So this one, the memes are so interesting. I thought this was hilarious, particularly the I Heart Mao pin that's on Pierre Elliott's lapel there. Hilarious. And he's handing the trophy for worst prime minister ever to his son Justin. And man, the memes are vicious. There's lots of interesting things trending. Hashtag Trudeau must go, hashtag Trudeau must resign. These things are trending on Twitter, and if you search those hashtags, well, I'll show you what you find at the end of the video. But I wanted to start with the memes because the memes are they tell a story. They really do. And it's important to pay attention. If you don't pay attention to it, well, you're going to end up like Justin in October, I think. Here is a look back at what Justin Trudeau apologizes for. He apologized for the ethics violations. You know, the first time a sitting prime minister got slapped with ethics violations. Thank you, Justin. He apologized for that one, but he didn't want to apologize for this one. And I still think he doesn't think he did anything wrong. I think he thinks all of these people are crazy. So here's Laura Stone reminding us, and this was tweeted out in May of this year. It says, at Justin Trudeau to at New York Times on Jody Wilson-Raybould, that's at Puglass. Quote, I regret that it all happened, but there can't be an apology. There can't be a genuine apology when I genuinely do not think that in this disagreement she was right and I was wrong. Oh, Justin, we've got news for you. Here's the New York Times article, and yep, hair, right? And here's the paragraph in question. It says there was a disagreement in perspective that was real and genuine. He said, I regret that it all happened, but there can't be an apology. I just read all that. And it says, I skipped down just a little bit. It says, his objective now, he said, is to allow anyone with a concern to actually articulate that to me and quicker so we can respond to it rather than let it sort of fester the way it apparently did here. Mr. Miller, his friend, said the Prime Minister had learned that it was important to be open, quote, to a number of voices that you don't necessarily want to hear, but you have to for your own development. Right. But the thing is, she was clear. But we're not going to rehash SNC Lavalin because, well, there's a whole bunch of stuff that Trudeau's not going to apologize for. Here's Justin Trudeau saying that he accepts the report, but not that he apologizes for it, that he accepts it. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that I disagree with, but I accept it. Here we go. Just a minute. I know. Nails on chalkboard. I agree.
Thank the Ethics Commissioner for his report. And even though I disagree with some of his conclusions, I fully accept this report and take responsibility for everything that happened. Where I disagree with the Commissioner, amongst others, is where he says and takes a strong perspective that any contact with the AG, the Attorney General in this issue, was improper. My job as a Prime Minister is to stand up for Canadians and defend their interests.
I'm just going to stop it there. That was enough. Thanks, Justin. Okay, moving on. Here is an important piece of the ethics report that is highlighted in I'm going to read a Globe and Mail article about this. It's all important to pay attention to, but I want to highlight this because this is a really important aspect to this case and something that I just found out. And I covered this pretty in depth. I've covered SNC Lavalin and the Jody Wilson-Raybould. If you search my back catalog for JWR, that'll bring up most of the SNC Lavalin stuff, and I covered it pretty extensively. This is the first I heard about this. I tagged this yesterday right away as soon as I saw it. So here is Brian Platt saying, the ethics report says the Prime Minister's office and SNC Lavalin went behind Wilson-Raybould's back to approach Beverly McLaughlin to, quote, participate in the matter. And SNC already had legal opinions from two former Supreme Court justices, which had been reviewed by the Prime Minister's office and other ministerial officials. And we'll look at this whole. This is the image attached to that tweet. It says, application for a judicial review of the Director of Public Prosecution's decisions. These attempts are also included encouraging her to re-examine the possibility of obtaining external advice from, quote, someone like a former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. That was the SCC, right? Unbeknownst to the Attorney General at the time, that's Jody Wilson-Raybould, legal opinions from two former Supreme Court justices retained by SNC Lavalin had been reviewed by the Prime Minister's office and other ministerial offices. Meanwhile, both SNC Lavalin and the Prime Minister's office had approached the former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court to participate in the matter. The final attempt to influence Ms. Wilson-Raybould occurred during a conversation with the former clerk of the Privy Council on December 19th, 2018. And when was she removed? In the which cabinet shuffle? Right? You remember? It was early. Maybe you don't. I'll show you. It was less than a month later in the January 14th cabinet shuffle, and she was replaced with A.G. Lametti, who's currently there now. And I speculated at the time they were going to shoehorn in the DPA at Easter. I thought Easter. And if not Easter, Labor Day, but not Labor Day because, well, it'll be election, right? So no time to get it in. So if they get reelected, I would imagine that they will think the DPA is no big deal, right? Link is in the description. And I've heard the description aren't including links. So please check out CanadaPoly.com. The same title of the video will have all of my link supports that I usually provide in the description. So it's all on CanadaPoly.com. So please check that out. Okay, here's the Trudeau violated the ethics law by the Globe and Mail. Here we go. Trudeau violated ethics law by pressing Wilson-Raybould over SNC Lavalin deal Ethics Commission rules. Federal Ethics Commissioner Mario Dion says Prime Minister Justin Trudeau contravened a section of the Conflict of Interest Act by using his position of authority over then Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould to get her to overrule the Director of Public Prosecution's decisions to not negotiate a deal with SNC Lavalin that would avoid criminal prosecution. Mr. Dion's report, released Wednesday morning, reveals that the Prime Minister, quote, directed his staff to find a solution that would safeguard SNC Lavalin's business interests in Canada. In reaching his decision that the Prime Minister, quote, sought to improperly further the interests of SNC Lavalin, the Ethics Commissioner concluded that Mr. Trudeau's actions and those of his officials in the PMO, Prime Minister's office, were contrary to principles of prosecutorial independence. The authority of the Prime Minister and his office was used to circumvent, undermine, and ultimately attempt to discredit the decision of the Director of Public Prosecutions, as well as the authority of Ms. Wilson-Raybould as the Crown's Chief Law Officer, Mr. Dion wrote in his report. Mr. Dion criticized the government for failing to waive the principle of cabinet confidence for this investigation, which limited the amount of information that witnesses could provide him during interviews and in the production of documents. I'm convinced that if our office is to remain truly independent and fulfill its purpose, I must have unfettered access to all information that could be relevant to the exercises of my mandate, the Ethics Commissioner wrote. SNC Lavalin is facing charges of fraud and bribery related to alleged payments of millions of dollars made to public officials in Libya between 2001 and 2011 to secure government contracts. The Ethics Commissioner's report lays out new details on efforts that were led by Mr. Trudeau, starting with a meeting with officials from SNC Lavalin in 2016 to adopt legislation that would allow for deferred prosecution agreements, DPAs, in Canada, and subsequently to see whether the company could enter into such an agreement. Mr. Trudeau testified to the Ethics Commissioner that he believed that if the company had indeed reformed itself, a criminal conviction would be an unfortunate loss for employees, as SNC Lavalin is a significant employer across Canada, and that it would also be an unfortunate loss in terms of infrastructure projects in Canada, the report said. Mr. Trudeau testified that in early 2016, he had limited knowledge of remediation agreements. He instructed senior advisor Mathieu Bouchard to look into the concept and see what existed in other countries. He also said that as part of his instructions, he told Mr. Bouchard to pay attention to the SNC Lavalin matter and identify existing levers that could lead to positive outcome for everyone, the report added. The Liberals eventually adopted the legislation last year. Yeah, they snuck it in, and I do a report on that as well. However, Director of the Public Prosecutions, Kathleen Rousseau, took the position that SNC Lavalin's Libya case did not meet the criteria for a DPA and notified Ms. Wilson-Raybould of her position in early September 2018. Within days, according to Ms. Wilson-Raybould's testimony before a House Justice Committee, various government officials ramped up a campaign aimed at convincing her to override Ms. Rousseau, which she did not do. Come January, Ms. Wilson-Raybould was shuffled into the Veterans Affairs post. She resigned from cabinet amid the controversy the following month. Her former Liberal colleague, Jane Philpott, resigned as Treasury Board president soon after, saying that it was obvious that, quote, a range of individuals had inappropriately attempted to pressure the former Attorney General in relation to a prosecutorial decision. In April, Mr. Trudeau expelled both women from the Liberal caucus as candidates for the party in the federal election this fall, saying the criticism of his role in the SNC-Lavalin affair had eroded trust and helped the government's political opponents. Ms. Wilson-Raybould and Ms. Philpott have said they will run as independents. Isn't that funny? Egg on your face now, Trudeau, right? Like, that's me now, but like, isn't it interesting? He ejected these two people for something that the Ethics Commission says, no, you failed here. You did this inappropriately, and yet still, these two women are no longer Liberals, even though they haven't crossed the floor. They haven't joined another party. Ms. Wilson-Raybould was offered leadership of the Greens kind of cavalierly and publicly by Elizabeth May, which seems strange. But all of that aside, they've been vindicated fully here. They were right and he was wrong. And I still don't think he thinks he's wrong. Back to this. At a news conference, Mr. Trudeau said that he can't apologize for standing up for Canadian jobs, which he said were at stake given SNC-Lavalin's legal and financial problems. Still, he acknowledges his government failed to find the proper way to protect the public interest while upholding prosecutorial independence. He added he would not fire any officials involved in the efforts to overturn the decision involving SNC-Lavalin. Mr. Trudeau's former principal secretary, Gerald Butts, resigned from the Prime Minister's office at the height of the controversy, but is now working on the Liberal campaign. Yep, he's back. I scroll down a bit. The Ethics Commissioner's report also provides new details on a series of interactions between senior PMO officials, mostly Mr. Bouchard and another lawyer in the PMO, Elder Marquess, and Ms. Wilson-Raybould, and her top ministerial staffers over the possibility that she would listen to external advice and reconsider her position. In addition, other ministers and their staff, including Finance Minister Bill Morneau and former Treasury Board President Scott Bryson, were involved in this matter. Two former Supreme Court court judges advised SNC-Lavalin on the file. It is its legal counsel, Frank Iacobucci, who requested an opinion from former Supreme Court John Major in 2018. The opinion was shared with the government. Officials in the federal government, meanwhile, raised the possibility of seeking advice of former Justice of Supreme Court Beverly McLaughlin. I'd read about the Iacobucci connection. Yeah, Frank Iacobucci, this one. I read about that one, but I hadn't heard about Beverly McLaughlin, and I hadn't heard that the government had actually reviewed Major's decision or McLaughlin's decision. So anyway, I heard about that. I hadn't heard about the other two. Just wanted to be clear. Back to the article. The Globe and Mail first reported on February 7th that Ms. Wilson-Raybould had resisted the pressure from the Prime Minister's office to issue a directive to the Public Prosecution Service of Canada to defer court proceedings against SNC-Lavalin in favor of a negotiated settlement without trial. Mr. Trudeau initially dismissed this as false and said that he did not direct the former Attorney General to shelve the fraud and bribery prosecution of the Montreal engineering giant. He later acknowledged an erosion of trust between his staff and Ms. Wilson-Raybould, but has repeatedly said that neither he nor his staff had done anything wrong. Well, not so true. Scroll down a bit. Overall, Mr. Dion said the Prime Minister might have only had a single interaction with Ms. Wilson-Raybould on the matter of SNC-Lavalin, but that he must take responsibility for the actions of his officials. Mr. Dion concluded the government violated the principles of the Shawcross Doctrine, which established the line between legitimate discussion and interference in the role of an Attorney General. And there's a bit more to that article, but link is in the description or at CanadaPoly.com. And here is the CBC article. Came out yesterday afternoon. It says RCMP looking at SNC-Lavalin affair carefully, promised to take action as required. And it says the RCMP says it's reviewing the facts of the SNC-Lavalin affair carefully in the wake of a new damning report from the Ethics Commissioner that found Prime Minister Justin Trudeau violated the Conflict of Interest Act following renewed calls from opposition to investigate. The RCMP is examining this matter carefully with all available information and will take appropriate action as required, spokesperson Chantal Payette said in a statement to CBC News Wednesday. It would be inappropriate for us to provide any more comments on this matter at this time. And here are the hashtag Trudeau must resign. And as I said, this is Spencer Fernando saying Trudeau must resign is trending on Twitter until they stop it from trending, in favor of another hashtag that they... Oh, there it is. Yeah, I stand with Trudeau. Yes, the 5,016 tweets that people are saying, please. But Trudeau must resign and Trudeau must go to jail. I hadn't seen that, but Trudeau must go as well. Has had Twitter stop it from trending a couple of times. How is Trudeau must go not trending? There it is. And so it's interesting to watch these moves and counter moves as Twitter bans hashtags, more rise up and organically, and people people kind of flock to them, et cetera, et cetera. It's interesting to watch. And as I said, there's a huge amount of news happening. I'm committed to one video a day. I'm going to the PPC conference on the weekend, so I'm probably going to do some streaming over the weekend and some discussions and things with people. If I can convince people to talk with me, I hope I can. I probably can. And well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to try and get as many videos out as I can, because as I said, there's so much stuff happening. Like, I haven't even touched on hashtag Let Max Speaks. I haven't touched on Andrew Scheer's continuing pandering. And it's interesting, all of this stuff. Jagmeet Singh's complete miss of a campaign. I mean, like, we're a couple of weeks from the writ dropping, right? We really are. And it's shaping up to be a CPC versus PPC for most of the seats. And despite what the news says, regardless of what the news says, I mean, if you just look at the ridings, and yeah, okay, 246, I think, is what the Liberals had last time I looked. Anyway, I'm diatribing here, but there's a lot going on, so I'm going to try and stay caught up. But man, I do what I can do. So we'll see you the next time I see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out thepeoplespartyofcanada.ca and have a wonderful, wonderful